I gotta ask you about this upcoming Diddy trial that's coming up in a few days. I think it's coming up in about 4 or 5 days. How you feel about Cassie testifying against Diddy?
Yes, sir. First of all, it should be absolutely illegal for Cassie to testify against Diddy. When he paid her off, I believe there was an NDA involved in that situation. He was paying her off to shut up and go away. After all the money he paid her, after her signing an NDA, how can she then be brought back into court to testify against him? It reminds me of Bill Cosby. Some of those women who lied on Bill Cosby during his sex abuse cases had NDAs, and the court let them break the NDA. You never see this with a white man accused of the same. You never see this with a Caucasian accused of the same. His lawyers should do all that they can to fight against Cassie testifying. She wasn't sex trafficked. So why are you testifying in a sex trafficking case? He is not being charged with crimes against Cassie. He's being charged with crimes against other. Cassie was paid and dismissed. Why is she being brought back into court after taking that man's money and testifying against him? That right there is clearly an excessive and abusive use of the law. She should not be able to take the stand against that man. And I don't condone sex abuse. I don't condone sex assault. I don't condone sex trafficking, none of that. But at the same time, I stand for justice. In letting a woman who's already been paid off and signed the NDA to come into court and testify against me like y'all allowed in the Bill Cosby trial, absolutely unacceptable, absolutely wrong. I do not like it. As far as Puffy asking for his case to be delayed, I agree with that. Remember, one of his lawyers recused himself, okay, at least one of them. So he probably has, some new people on his legal team. They got to get reacclimated and get caught up with what's going on. And I saw nothing wrong with him asking for a 2-month delay. He's already in jail. Y'all didn't give him bail, which I also think is a violation of his constitutional rights. So he should have got the 8-week delay. But here we go again. Deion Sanders. We want to make an example out of Puff. And of course, Deion wasn't accused of what Puffy is being accused of, but we want to make an example out of Sean Puffy Combs. He was too confident. He was too big, and it was time for us to bring him down. See, one thing we need to understand, Art, the Carmelo Anthony case, the Shador Sanders situation, the Puffy Combs case, the Shannon Sharp case. They are all involving the same basic issue. And you know what that is? Black people need to stay in their place. Shannon Sharp, you ain't got no business sleeping with 19-year-old snow bunnies. Deion and Shador, you ain't got no business being confident and independent. Sean Puffy Combs, you ain't got no business being a multi-billionaire mogul suing a multi-billionaire liquor company. Bill Cosby, you ain't have no business trying to purchase a major broadcasting station. Carmelo Anthony, you have no business defending yourself against white people. We can do whatever we want to do with your people. In every instance of all these cases, Art, there is one common theme. Black people are forgetting who the slaves are and who the slave masters are, and we're going to remind you. Our job as a people is to rebel against the slave system, Art, but you can only do that if we working together. If we organize and unify, we can overthrow the entire slaveocracy.
And how you feel about him turning down his plea deal?
I would have turned down the plea deal too, Art. I would have turned it down. And the reason I would have turned it down, and again, I don't know Puff personally, never hung around the gentleman, but I'm having a hard time believing he's guilty of sex trafficking. I don't know about the racketeering. I've never been in the bad boy office. The only thing he's being charged with that I could see him being convicted of is the prostitution, payment for sex. That's it. The Mann Act, interstate prostitution. That is the only thing I can see him being convicted of. I do not see the sex trafficking. I do not see the sex abuse. All I see is that there's a possibility that Sean Puffy Combs may have paid men and or women to have sex with him or other men and or women. All I see is FIFA sex. Beyond FIFA sex, I'm not sure of the other charges. And if my assumptions are correct, I too, like Sean Combs, would take my day in trial. I'm not pleading out. I would have needed to know what that plea was in order for me to decide if he should have taken it or not. I'm still leaning towards no. The other issue too here, Art, is you got to realize if he takes a plea, you cannot revoke that plea later. In addition to that, if he takes the plea on the racketeering, Art, that means he's admitting that Bad Boy Incorporated was a criminal enterprise, which means the government is able to lay siege to everything he owned in the name of Bad Boy. The money, the buildings, the real estate, the catalogs. And I believe the biggest reason why he not pleading out, Art, is he don't want the government to confiscate his entire legacy and his entire company. So after he gets out, he will have absolutely nothing if he pleads out. So I think he has to roll the dice and see what happens.